All right, so we're gonna go over cranial nerves. I like to put my cranial nerves in a chart. When you memorize your cranial nerves, you should always be able to write them out. I don't know how many times this saved me, but first we're gonna go through our Roman numerals. So, you need to know your Roman numerals. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. X is 10, so V is 5, 11, and 12. They are in Roman numerals. I will never give a number. I will only give Roman numerals. Now, these are named according to their function. Now, there are mnemonics that you can use to help you memorize cranial nerves. So, one of the ways that I learned the names of cranial nerves, I'm going to turn this sideways. A way to remember your cranial nerves is you do like a little story on old Olympus, towering tops, a fat virgin German viewed some hops. Now, I've heard different mnemonics for cranial nerves. O, to touch and feel very green vegetables. Aha. I'll tell you why it's aha here in a moment. These are just cranial nerve mnemonics. This is the one I use. So, on old Olympus towering tops, a fat virgin German viewed some hops. This helps you keep the order of their names. So it starts with O, T, T, A, F, V, G, V, S, H. But you do need to keep your O's in order. You have a couple of T's, you have a couple of V's. So they are named according to their function. So the first one is called olfactory. Olfaction means to smell. The second one is optic. When we see the word optic, I want you to think of optical illusion. The third one is oculo. The word oculo means eye. The word motor means it's motor control of the eye. The fourth one is called trochlear. I'll tell you why it's called trochlear here in a moment. The next one is called trigeminal. Now, trigeminal means the three twins. Gemini is the twins, trigeminal. The next one is called abducens. The word abducens comes from the word abduction. The next one is called facial. The next one is called vestibulocochlear. The next one is called glosso. The word glosso is going to always mean pertaining to the tongue. Pharyngeal, the pharynx. Pharyngeal means throat. The next one is vagus. The next one is spinal accessory. Some people, I put one too many C's in there and not enough S's. Some people say aha, like O, to touch and feel very green vegetables, aha. This one is named spinal accessory. And then the last one is hypo, which means below, and glossal, which means tongue. So understanding what the words mean are going to help you with their functions. So these are your cranial nerves. So if you're filling out a chart, you always would start with learning your mnemonics. On old Olympus, towering tops, A, fat, virgin, viewed, some. I missed one. On old Olympus towering tops, a fat, virgin, German, viewed, some, hops. So before you ever do cranial nerves, the first thing is get down your mnemonics. Then you go through and you say, okay, number one is olfactory. The next one is optic, oculomotor, trochlear, trigeminal, abducens, facial, vestibulocochlear. It's a long one. Glossopharyngeal. Another long one. Vagus. Spinal Accessory. I'm not sure about the double C's right there. And hypoglossal. So, these are the names. The names are going to help you with their functions. Now, the next thing is composition. So we said compositions can be, they're sensory only. That means they only have sensory neurons. Motor only, or mixed. And mixed means they have both. So you can also learn the composition of cranial nerves an easy way. Using a mnemonic. So, first thing we might want to do is get the names out there. On old Olympus towering tops, A, fat, virgin, German, viewed, some, hops. So this should be 1 through 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I have all my cranial nerves there. Now this is going to be Roman numerals and names. Now to do compositions, you can use another mnemonic. Some say, marry, money, but my brother says bad boys marry money. So we're doing composition. Anytime the composition has an S next to it from this mnemonic, you know it's sensory. Sensory only. Anytime it has an M, it's going to be motor only. And anytime we have a B, that means it's both, which means that it's mixed. So I like to color code everything, but this is just a mnemonic that you can use. So cranial nerve 1, since it has an S on it, it's going to be sensory composition. When we say the composition is sensory, it's sensory neurons only. Cranial nerve 2 is sensory. Cranial nerve 3 and 4, they have M's. So these are going to be, the composition is motor. When we say the composition is motor, it has motor neurons only. Motor. The last two have M's. Those are motor composition. That means that they have motor neurons only. So I could go ahead and write this one, cranial nerve 8 is going to be sensory composition. Now anything that has a B means both, and both means that it's mixed composition. So it has a B. Both means it's mixed composition. Mixed means it has both sensory and motor. mixed composition, mixed composition, and mixed composition. So the composition of cranial nerves, you'll commonly see me ask these on a lab practical or a test. You literally can take your chart and you can basically write it out. Some say marry money, but my brother says bad boys marry money. So sensory, sensory, motor, motor. When you have both, it's mixed, motor, mixed, sensory, mixed, mixed, motor, motor. Now for me, I always like to color code things. It helps me understand everything. So anytime you talk about sensory neurons are going to pertain to general and special senses. So general senses are going to be anything that is going to involve pain, touch, tickle, vibration, pressure. Anytime you talk about motor neurons are only going to be able to control muscles or glands. So when you have cranial nerves that are mixed, both sensory and motor, they're going to have sensory functions and motor functions. So you have to distinguish the difference between those. Now, I want to talk about senses. We've talked about senses before. So, when we say senses, you need to know the difference between general senses. General senses are senses that you can feel throughout the body, so they have receptors distributed throughout the body. General senses are going to include touch, pain, pressure, vibration, temperature, anything. You can just keep going. Tickle. Now, that's general senses. Special senses are going to be very important for cranial nerves. Special senses are confined to the head. So the receptors are on the head. So special senses are going to be vision, smell, taste, hearing, and equilibrium. So all of these things in special senses are going to be controlled by cranial nerves because cranial nerves innervate the head. So when we say senses, there can be general senses and special senses. So if it has sensory neurons only, it may basically innervate the skin of the head so that when you pop a zit on your face, you feel pain. But you also have special senses. Now, the word olfactory literally means to smell, olfaction. So the function, its composition is sensory. So sensory is going to be special senses. So the function is going to be smell. Now optic, think of an optical illusion. It's sensory. Optical illusions, that's going to be vision. So you can smell because of the olfactory nerve, and you can see because of the optic nerve. Now, when you start getting to 3, 4, and 6, they're all motor. And then we have trigeminal, which is going to be mixed. So I want to cover oculomotor, trochlear, and abducens. Now, a way that I remembered 3, 4, and 6, which are all motor. So 3, 4, and 6. 3, 4, and 6 are going to make the eyes do tricks. So I'm just writing that at the bottom as a way to remember. So, cranial nerves 3, IV is 4, and VI is 6. Cranial nerves 3, 4, and 6 are going to make the eyes do tricks. Now, we know when we talk about motor, it controls muscles. So I need to talk about muscles of the eye. So cranial nerves 3, 4, and 6, that's a way you say it, makes the eyes do tricks. It kind of rhymes. 3, 4, and 6, you need to know your Roman numerals, makes the eyes do tricks. So I need to review the eye. 3, 4, and 6 make the eyes do tricks. Now, when we look at the eye, I'm going to draw an eye. Alright, the pupil is the center of the eye. And we all have a colorful portion of the eye, which is called the iris. The iris is around the pupil, so I'm going to do green eyes. Oh, it's not a very good green. That's not a very good green either, but it's okay. The iris is the colorful portion of the eye. Now, this is going to represent like where the nose would be. So, over here, I'm just going to write the nose. So I know medial from lateral. Alright, so we know that cranial nerves 3, 4, and 6 makes the eyes do tricks. What that means is cranial nerves 3, 4, and 6 are going to control extraocular, ocular means eye muscles. Now we have 6 extraocular eye muscles total. These eye muscles are going to surround the eye, and they're going to move the eye in different directions. Now, the first muscle that we talk about is called the superior rectus. So superior means it's on the top, rectus means that it's straight. The next one is on the bottom. It's called inferior rectus. It's below the eye. Okay, the third one is on the inside near the nose. It's called the medial rectus. The fourth one is on the outside. It's called the lateral rectus. Now, the rectus muscles are pretty easy. These are going to help move the eye in whatever direction that they're at. So, we have 4 muscles that are called rectus. I'm just going to draw straight lines. The superior rectus is at the top. It moves your eye up. The inferior rectus is the muscle on the bottom. It helps your eyes look down. Your medial rectus looks towards the nose, so technically that would be adduction. It goes medially. And then the muscle that makes it point out or go away from midline is the lateral rectus, which is abduction. So, these are rectus muscles. Rectus means that they're straight. So, let's go ahead and label these. The superior rectus helps you look up towards the nose is your medial rectus, which is going to do adduction. Inferior rectus helps you look down, and your lateral rectus goes away from midline when you're moving that eye. You're doing eye tricks. The lateral rectus is going to do abduction. Now we have two muscles that are called oblique muscles. Oblique means that they go at an angle. Now we do have a piece of connective tissue that is right here. And this is basically called the trochlea. The trochlea is basically like a tendon that is going to attach to the superior oblique. So it's a tendon. It's a tendinous sheath. So our fifth muscle is called the superior oblique. The word oblique means that it goes at an angle. So your trochlea, which is like a tendon attached to the eye, attached to that is going to be the superior oblique. It goes at an angle. So it's on the top and it's going at an angle. It's not straight. All of these are straight. So oblique means it's at an angle. And then down here at the bottom, which is inferior, you have the inferior oblique. So those are your 6 extraocular eye muscles. And 3, 4, and 6 make the eyes do tricks. So they control these. Inferior means on the bottom, and oblique. So we can label these. Superior oblique is attached to the trochlea, and inferior oblique is on the bottom and it's at an angle. So the word rectus means that it's straight. Oblique means it's at an angle. That's just the easy way to do it. So when you're doing your extraocular eye muscles, the easiest way to do it, and this is a really fast way, is you literally can draw an eye. You can draw a pupil. You don't have to draw the iris, but you literally go in order. Superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, lateral rectus, inferior oblique. Then you have to remember your trochlea. Your trochlea is going to be important. So you draw your trochlea on there and you draw the superior oblique. So you write superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, lateral rectus, superior oblique, inferior oblique. You always just draw this out. So the next thing is which cranial nerves control which extraocular eye muscles. So there's a saying that you can use. We literally say it like this, and I'm going to put basically this in a different color so you can remember this. This is what you're going to say. 3, 4, and 6 make the eyes do tricks. This is the first thing that you say. 3, 4, and 6 make the eyes do tricks. I need a different color purple. I need to emphasize that. First thing that you're going to say is cranial nerves 3, 4, and 6 make the eyes do tricks. Now, when we say the eyes do tricks, they control the 6 extraocular eye muscles. So the way you remember which ones control which is you use the letters to help you. So superior rectus is SR, inferior rectus is IR, medial rectus is MR, lateral rectus is LR, SO is superior oblique, and IO is inferior oblique. So you use these letters, and this is what you say. SO. So SO is the superior oblique. And then you put the word 4. SO4. And then you say LR6. LR is lateral rectus, cranial nerve 6. So 3, 4, and 6 makes the eyes do tricks. And then you go A, E, 3. So you literally are saying each little thing when you say this. This is just a trick. You would draw this out. SO4, LR6, AE3. Now you need to understand what this means. Cranial nerve 4 controls the superior oblique. Cranial Nerve 6, VI. V is 5, so plus 1 is 6. So lateral rectus is controlled by cranial nerve 6 and AE3, cranial nerve 3. Now that is not necessarily clear. So when you draw this out and you write SO4 LR6 AE3, you literally can put a 4 and a 3, a 6 right here. SO4 LR6 AE stands for all else. All else means all other eye muscles. So SO4, superior oblique, is controlled by cranial nerve 4. LR6, lateral rectus, is controlled by cranial nerve 6. AE is all else. That means all other eye muscles are controlled by cranial nerve 3. So you put a 4, you put a 6, anything else is controlled by cranial nerve 3. So I would draw this out. 3, 4, and 6 make the eyes do tricks. So SO4, LR6, all else 3. So inferior oblique is controlled by 3. Inferior rectus is controlled by 3. Medial rectus is controlled by 3. And superior rectus is controlled by 3. That's all the other eye muscles. So I literally would draw this out really quick. It's just a fast way to do it. Now we have to put this in the chart. 3, 4, and 6 make the eyes do tricks. So we need to fill this in. Motor, motor, motor. The eyes do tricks. Now, SO4, LR6, AE3. How are you going to draw out your extraocular eye muscles? You're literally going to draw an eye, and you're going to draw these out. It's important to know that this is the trochlea. That's why it gets its name. So, SO4, this is cranial nerve 4. So, it controls superior oblique eye muscle, SO4. It's named SO4 or trochlear because it's attached to the trochlea. Okay, LR6. This is 6. V is 5 and 1 is 6. So it controls the lateral rectus eye muscle. Now the lateral rectus eye muscle is going to pull the eye away. So to pull away from midline, midline is this way. This would be a abduction. To go away from midline. This one would be a deduction to go towards midline. So cranial nerve 6 is called abducens. Abduction. That's why it's got its name. Now, 3, AE3. So if you draw out your eye like this, you know which ones are left. So we've got the superior rectus is 3, inferior rectus is 3, medial rectus, and inferior oblique. So this one you have to write small. Controls the superior rectus, inferior rectus, the medial rectus, and inferior oblique eye muscles. That would be a full answer for 3, 4, and 6. Now, the word trigeminal. The word trigeminal means the 3 twins. I'm going to draw another picture on here. It's really not that great of a picture, but it'll work. So basically, when you talk about the trigeminal, here's the ear, Here's a mouth. So again, like I said, it's not great. All right, the word trigeminal. Your trigeminal nerve actually comes out about the ear. Tri means three, and it branches. It branches here, it branches here, and it branches here. Trigeminal, the three twins. This is the first branch, the second branch, and the third branch. Trigeminal means the three twins. So this is a face, if you hadn't noticed. The three twins, so literally what I do is I make the figure 3 and I put it in front of my ear, this part right here, and then one branches to above my eyebrow, one branches to my cheek, and one branches to my chin. So that's trigeminal. The word trigeminal means the three twins. Trigeminal, the three twins. Now, the muscles that are right where the trigeminal comes out, right at your cheek right here, is the muscles of mastication. That's your masseter. So basically, when we talk about the trigeminal comes out right over the masseter. And the next thing that it does is it is going to have sensory branches that go to each area. So trigeminal has basically two functions. It's going to do sensation to your entire face. So if you ever get like a piece of sand in your eye, or if you have a pimple on your forehead or your cheek or your mandible, this is going to basically provide facial sensation over the entire way. So the sensory neurons are going to branch out over each area and do facial expression, not facial expression, sensory to the face. Now it's just going to be general senses to the face. So trigeminal is mixed. When we talk about trigeminal, you always do this, the three twins. It is mixed. So you can have damage to just the sensory portion, but you can also have damage to just the motor because it branches in three. So you can damage this first branch and you can be numb over your forehead. You could be numb here or here. So when these are mixed like this, what I would do over here is write blue for sensory, and then what it does, and then red for motor, because it's mixed. It has both sensory and motor functions, and just the sensory can be damaged and just motor can be damaged. So sensory, what it's going to do is going to be facial sensations. Any and all general senses to the face. Touch, temperature, pressure. So these are just general senses. Okay, now motor. Motor means it controls muscles or glands. Now, we just talked about trigeminal coming out right at the ear, right at the masseter. So the motor portion, it's mixed. It's going to control the masseter muscle. So we say it controls the muscles of mastication, which means chewing. So the trigeminal comes out over the masseter. The masseter elevates the jaw. So the word mastication literally means chewing. So when we talk about trigeminal, it comes out over the masseter. So we say it controls muscles of mastication. So 3, 4, and 6 make the eyes do tricks. So you would draw the eye muscles. Trigeminal, remember it's 3 branches. Hold your hand like that. Put it right in front of your ear. And you're right on the mandible. Alright, so now we're on to facial. Facial goes pretty much to the whole entire face. It's also going to be mixed. Now, there is something online that you can look at. It's called the Cranial Nerve Man. The Cranial Nerve Man. I'm going to draw the cranial nerve man out really quick. This is another way that you can learn your cranial nerves. It's a simplified way, but I'm telling you to learn your chart. Okay, so 1 represents the nose. That's olfactory. So you draw the number 2 to represent the optic nerve. Okay, the eyebrow is 3. 3, 4, and 6 make the eyes do tricks. So you can honestly write 4 and 6 around the eye. 3, 4, and 6 make the eyes do tricks. It kind of looks like, you know, eyelashes. We're actually going to make the face with the number 5, which is trigeminal. There are 3 branches of trigeminal. You have facial sensation and muscles of mastication. So we've already done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now we're on 7. So to do the number 7, you draw it out to the side on either side. That's for your face. So on the tongue, however, I'm going to draw the tongue right here, coming off this guy. Okay, on the tongue, the very front of the tongue, the anterior 2/3 is going to be controlled by cranial nerve 7. That'll be important. The back of the tongue is controlled by cranial nerve 9. And the very backmost portion of the tongue is going to be controlled by cranial nerve 10, which is vagus. Now, coming down right here, this would be your throat and your larynx and your pharynx. This is also going to be controlled by cranial nerve 10. And then cranial nerve 11 is going to go to the neck. So this is your throat. You're going to draw your 11 right here to represent your neck. And then I'm going to add number 12 to the tongue. So the tongue has a lot going on with it. So cranial nerve 1, that's the nose. Olfactory is for smell. Cranial nerve 2 is the eyes. That's for vision. 3, 4, and 6 make the eyes do tricks. So you should draw the eye out really quick. Trigeminal means the 3 twins. It literally goes to 3 branches. It's facial sensation and it comes out over the master. 7 is going to make up the face, but it's also going to be part of the tongue. Cranial nerve 8, which we didn't draw in here, is going to be your ears. So it's involved with your ears. You can put it out here. So these can kind of help you remember where it's at and what it does. So 3, 4, and 6 make the eyes do tricks. 2 is vision. 1 is going to be smell. Now 7, 9, and 10 are going to be for taste sensation. 12 is going to be motor. 8 is going to be hearing, obviously. 11 is in the neck. So you can use this cranial nerve man as a fast way to go through your cranial nerves. But one of the best way to learn your cranial nerves is just writing it out in a chart over and over and over and over. Now, before we begin, I want to talk about cranial nerve 7. Cranial nerve 7 is actually just right here above the eyes. So we have glands. The glands on the face that we're going to talk about are going to be the lacrimal glands. The lacrimal glands are going to produce tears. Your lacrimal glands are right above the eyes. You have your nasal mucus glands, which obviously makes mucus for your nose. And then you have salivary glands. Now we have 3 sets of salivary glands. We have sublingual glands, which are under the tongue. We have our submandibular glands. So right here is the mandible sublingual is under the tongue. And then right here on the outside, we have our parotid glands. So there's 3 salivary glands. Sublingual. 7 is close to sublingual. 7 is also close to submandibular glands. And then number 8 is actually close to your parotid glands, which is the biggest, but it's not controlled by cranial nerve 8. So the parotid gland, these are your 3 salivary glands that produce saliva. So lacrimal glands produce tears, nasal mucosal glands produce mucus, and then your salivary glands produce saliva. Now, cranial nerve 7 is going to help you smile, it's going to help you frown. So muscles of facial expression that we learned, like the orbicularis oculi, winking, blinking, the zygomaticus, all that, is going to be controlled by cranial nerve 7, facial expression muscles. But cranial nerve 7 also controls some of these glands. So 7 is by your salivary glands under your tongue. It's also right here by your submandibular glands. And 7 is by your lacrimal glands, which produce tears to the eye. So your motor control for facial is going to be really big. But cranial nerve 7 is also on the tongue, but it has sensory to the tongue. Now, the sensation on the tongue is taste. So, cranial nerve 7, we're going to start with sensory. Sensory is going to be taste to the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. Taste. Now, motor. Motor control means it controls muscles or glands. It is going to control muscles of facial expression. It's also going to control your lacrimal glands, nasal mucosal glands, and some salivary glands. So, I'm going to write it on the back. Cranial nerve 7 continued. So it's going to produce tears. It controls the lacrimal glands, the nasal mucus glands, and it controls some salivary glands. Cranial nerve 7 has big motor control. Facial expression muscles controls glands. Turn it over and you learn the glands. Now, back to your cranial nerve man. Cranial nerve 8 is going to involve special senses. It is sensory. So when we talk about 2 is sensory, 1 is sensory, and 8 is sensory. Cranial nerve 8 is sensory only. So what senses do you get from your ears? Hearing and equilibrium. So when we talk about the vestibulocochlear nerve, when we learn the inner portion of the ear, we're going to learn about the cochlea. The cochlea means it looks like a snail. This is the inner portion of the ear that looks like the cochlea. The round portion of the inner ear is called the vestibule. And it's going to branch into semicircular canals like this. This is in the inner ear. In the ear, this is specifically in the deep portion of the inner ear. You're going to learn these. This right here is the cochlea. This structure right here is called the vestibule. And these 3 things are called the semicircular canals. This is nervous system 2. Well, cranial nerve 8 is called the vestibulocochlear nerve. The vestibule is where we get the word vestibulo. Cochlear is where we get the word cochlear. So, cranial nerve 8, when we talk about the ear, the cochlea is responsible for hearing. So we hear with the cochlea, so we might have heard of cochlear implants. And the word vestibule, both your vestibule and your semicircular canals are going to be involved with balance and equilibrium. So basically your cranial nerve is going to branch into 2 branches. So I'm going to do it right here. This is cranial nerve 8. One branch is going to branch and go to the vestibule, and one branch is going to branch and go to the cochlea. So we call these the vestibule branch and the cochlear branch. So this is cranial nerve 8. It branches into 2. It goes to the vestibule, which is going to be responsible for balance and equilibrium. And it's also going to branch and it's going to go to the cochlea, which is involved with hearing. So when we talk about this one's only sensory, but it has 2 branches. That's what you would fill out. The vestibular branch and the cochlear branch. So it's sensory. The vestibular branch and the cochlear branch. The cochlear branch is involved with hearing. The vestibular branch is for balance and equilibrium. Sensory only. So that's special senses. All right. Now, the word glosso. The word glosso means tongue. Number 9 is on the tongue, glosso. Number 12, hypoglossal, underneath the tongue, but it's in the very back. Glossopharyngeal means that it is basically on the back of the tongue and close to the pharynx. So it's important for glossopharyngeal that you understand what those words mean. So, I want to write that out somewhere. It's good to have notes. Glosso always means it pertains to the tongue. Pharyngeal is a long word for pharynx. The word pharynx means your throat. So we use the word glossopharyngeal. Glossopharyngeal. So on the tongue, we had 7, which is literally on the front. Technically, cranial nerve 7 controls the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. Cranial nerve 9 is the back 2/3 of the tongue. Cranial nerve 9 is called glossopharyngeal. So, back to here, this is the throat behind this dotted line. So, cranial nerve 7 is only going to be taste to the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. Cranial nerve 7 is taste to the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. Now, glossopharyngeal is both motor and sensory function. So, when you say glosso, tongue, the tongue is made out of muscles, but that's not really what it controls. So in your mouth, you're going to salivate. So cranial nerve 9 is going to be responsible for controlling salivary glands, and it's where most salivation occurs. So we have a gland on the outside called the parotid gland, which is a big salivary gland. It's huge. And it comes into the mouth right at your molars. This is called the parotid duct. So this is the parotid gland, and it comes in at the back at your molars. This is a salivary gland that cranial nerve 9 is going to control. So cranial nerve 9 is on the back. It is both motor for glands and sensory for taste. So when we talk about cranial nerve 9, glossopharyngeal, its sensory is going to be taste on the posterior 1/3 of the tongue. It is mixed, so I'm doing motor as well. Motor for glossopharyngeal is it's going to control the salivary gland called the parotid gland. The largest salivary gland. So if you had damage to cranial nerve 9 and it was motor, you could have a dry mouth because the parotid gland is the largest, but it's not completely lost. You will have some saliva because you do have some control over facial expression. Your facial cranial nerve. So this is the largest salivary gland. You can lose your sensory portion or your motor portion. So if you lost the sensory of the glossopharyngeal, you would lose taste on the posterior half of the tongue, but you could still taste because you have glossopharyngeal on the back half. Now, at the base of the tongue, we're going back to the tongue. At the base of the tongue, really at the throat, cranial nerve 10 is going to be right here at the very, very back. Cranial nerve 10 is also going to be part of your throat all the way down to your esophagus. So your throat is called your pharynx. So food passes from your pharynx. If you're going down, your larynx is your voice box. Now your larynx divides into basically your trachea, which is going to be your respiratory system. And then if you continue down with food, your esophagus. So your pharynx, your larynx, your esophagus goes down to your stomach, which is going to go to your intestines. So cranial nerve 10 is going to be responsible for taste at the base of the tongue, but also in the back of the throat. But cranial nerve 10 is going to continue to go down for the pharynx, which is the throat, the larynx, which is your voice box, your esophagus is where food travels to the stomach. So cranial nerve 10 is literally going to go all the way to your thorax. And cranial nerve 10 is called your vagus nerve. Now I always think of it like Las Vegas. You eat, you drink, you scream. There's a lot of things that happens in Vegas. So when we talk about the vagus, first thing is it's sensory. Sensory for the vagus is going to be taste. So technically on here we could say anterior 2/3 is cranial nerve 7 for taste. Posterior 1/3 is glossopharyngeal. This is again taste. So I literally could draw this. Cranial nerve 9 is going to be sensory, taste on the posterior half, but also the parotid gland. Now cranial nerve 10 is going to be having taste buds on the back of your, basically your tongue, which is called the base of your tongue, and on your throat. So taste also includes 10, but you also have sensory to your throat. When you have a strep throat, you can feel sensory in your throat. When you scream too much, that should just be I misspelled these. I gotta fix them. There you go. This is the right spelling. I was like, these look wrong. Okay, your pharynx. You can feel when you have a sore throat. That's part of cranial nerve 10. You can feel when you have a sore voice box from screaming too much. When you swallow food and it kind of is too big, you can feel it going into your esophagus, and you can feel your stomach. And anytime we say the word organ, like stomach, that's going to be your viscera. So that's all going to be part of cranial nerve 10, which is vagus. So when I think of vagus and gambling, you know, you overeat. So you scream, you win, you eat, you drink, you're happy. Cranial nerve 10 is vagus. So when you talk about vagus, you're going to say sensory. You are going to talk about taste. Taste is going to be at the base of the tongue. And you have taste buds on the back of your throat. So taste at the base of the tongue and the pharynx. This is also going to detect sensations. Of the pharynx, throat, larynx, voice box, esophagus, muscular tube that allows food to pass through, and viscera, which is organs, over. Viscera of the thorax. So if you win $1 million, you'd feel your heart beating out of your chest. And when you overeat, your abdomen, so your stomach. So cranial nerve, these are senses. Sensory of your throat, your voice box, your esophagus, and your viscera of your thorax, which is lung and heart, and your abdomen, organs. Now, cranial nerve 10 also has motor functions. Cranial nerve 10 is going to be involved with speech and swallowing, because it's right there at the base of the tongue. You have muscles on the back of your throat. You have muscles that help push the food down. Swallowing is also going to involve the esophagus. So, on our cranial nerve man, wherever he might be, 10 is going to include your pharynx, your larynx, your voice box, and your esophagus. So motor contractions is going to be swallowing. We do use the esophagus and your pharynx to help us swallow, but also it's going to help you with sensory, so you can feel when you have something going down your throat. All right, spinal accessory. Spinal accessory is easy, thank goodness. Spinal accessory is going to control your muscles in your neck. We have two muscles. The muscle that helps you rotate and turn your head kind of looks like it goes like this, the sternocleidomastoid, and your shoulders. So the trapezius muscles. Two muscles are controlled by spinal accessory. These are the only ones that go to the neck. It controls the sternocleidomastoid and trapezius muscles. Spinal accessory, right here. Motor. Okay, hypoglossal. The word glossal means tongue. So we have the 12 on the tongue right here. Literally on the other picture of the tongue, we could put 12 on there somewhere, anywhere. Cranial nerve 12 is going to control the motor muscles of the tongue. It's motor, so it's only going to control muscles. So it controls the muscles of the tongue. The word for tongue is glossal. So it's going to control speech, swallowing, and also our tongue is involved a little bit with chewing. So that is the way that you can learn all of your cranial nerves, is understanding their names, where they're located, what they mean. Learning the cranial nerve man, that will help. And these are the things that you need to know for your cranial nerve.